Hello viewers, today I will tell you the anatomy of the cranial cavity. It is divided into the anterior cranial fossa, middle cranial fossa and the posterior cranial fossa. These are the divisions. One by one I will tell you the boundaries of these all. Now the anterior cranial fossa is formed by anterolateral. Its anterolateral boundary is formed by the frontal bone. This part is the frontal bone anteriorly and laterally. It is formed by the frontal bone. Right now the posteriorly, if you'll see, this is the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone. So posteriorly it is formed by the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone. This is the body of the sphenoid bone and these are the anterior crinoid process. So this is the anterior ridge. So posteriorly it is formed by the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone and the ridge of the body of the sphenoid bone, right? So this is whole about the anterior cranial fossa. Now I'm telling you the floor of the, this is the floor. Floor is formed by the frontal bone. As I have told you, this is the frontal bone. Now the frontal bone is lodged by the little portion of the ethmoid bone, right? Ethmoid bone. So this part is known as cribriform plate. Now you will say the floor is formed by the frontal bone plus cribriform plate. This is the frontal bone and this is the cribriform plate, right? Now the middle cranial fossa. When you are saying the posterior boundary is formed by the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone, so you will say the anterior boundary of the middle cranial fossa is formed by the posterior boundary of anterior cranial fossa. In simple words, you will say it is anteriorly formed by the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone and the ridge of the body of the sphenoid bone. Posteriorly it is formed by the petrous part of the temporal bone. This part is known as petrous part of the temporal bone and this is the dorsum sella of the sphenoid bone. So this is the posterior boundary of the middle cranium. I'll tell you the floor. Now floor, as you can see, the body of the sphenoid bone, the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone, the greater wing of the sphenoid bone and the squamous part of the temporal bone. These are the forming the floor. Floor means this portion. So this portion including the lesser wing, greater wing of the sphenoid bone, body of the sphenoid bone, squamous part of the temporal bone, right? So this was whole about the middle cranial fossa. Now if you will talk about the posterior cranial fossa boundaries, as you can see, posterior cranial fossa start from here to here. So its anterior boundary is formed by the petrous part of the temporal bone, dorsum sella of the body of the sphenoid bone, and posteriorly it is formed by the squamous part of occipital bone. Simple. Now its floor. Its floor is formed by whole occipital bone. Occipital bone including the condylar part of the occipital bone, the basilar part of the occipital bone, right, and the mastoid part of the temporal bone, okay, and the squamous part of the occipital bone. What you will say? The floor. So you can say the floor of the posterior cranial fossa is formed by the condylar, basilar and squamous part of the occipital bone. So this part is the basilar part, here there is the condylar part and this whole is the squamous part of the occipital bone. So this was whole about the anterior, middle and posterior cranial fossa. Thank you.